Shalom, guys. Welcome back to another episode here at YASHAV Ministries with Casa de Israel. Like I always say, thank you for being here. If you like the content that we have on our channel, please like, subscribe. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, please put them in the comment section down below. Also, if you know any youth that is interested in Elohim's truth and studying it, Elohim's, God's word in His context and His truth and His foundation, please share with anyone that is willing to listen. So, this week's Torah portion is Toldot, right? Which means generations or descendants, right? So this Torah portion starts off in Genesis 25, verse 19. It's talking about the generation and the descendants from Isaac, right? And so if we pay attention to the biblical narrative, right, from creation, all right, we see that Elohim is the creator and He is the foundation of everything, right? Through Him and by Him, everything is created. Right? Elohim is the one that created everything. And so we don't waste our time trying to figure out who, right? Or why. He says He created it and this is how, right? And then we understand Adam was created, right? In the image of Elohim, right? He was supposed to guard Elohim's purpose, Elohim's space, Elohim's sacred space. And he disobeys, right? So from Adam, we see a separation of men, right? There is the man of God, right, with Abel, and then the man of sin, of disobedience in Cain, right? Cain kills Abel, we have Seth, right? And see, we still have this division, and where men, right, the door that Adam and Eve opened, which was what I want, what I believe, what I think, right? Their own mind, their own wisdom, right? They start getting out of the path of Elohim, right? And so there's the line of Cain, right, which is a mindset, right? And then the line of Seth and Abel, which is obedience, giving their best to Elohim, right, and representing Him in the world. And so from there we see the story of Noah, right? And we find out that Noah was the only righteous man in the world in creation. So Elohim had to wipe out creation and start all over with Noah becoming a representation or a typification of Adam, right? Where Noah is the only righteous man in the world, and after everything is flooded and brought down, right, and under his protection, right, under Elohim's protection, because the ark represents Elohim's protection and guidance in this flood and this chaos, then Noah is called to dedicate, right? He builds an altar, he dedicates creation again to Elohim, and from Noah is supposed to do a reboot of what Elohim had created. And then from there we see Cain, right, and Sem, and then and his sons, right? And so Cain, right, sins and is cursed, and then we see Sem, and then we see another division, right, in the lineage. And so there's the gods of the men of sin and disobedience, and then the men that are willing to obey Elohim, right? Then we get to know Abraham. We've been getting to know Abraham and his personality, right? And Elohim tells us that Abraham is the one that's chosen, and the reason why Abraham is chosen is because he's willing to fulfill Elohim's purpose, Elohim's will, right, of justice and righteousness. And not only that, but he will be able, and he will be willing to teach his children and the descendants of his children the will of Elohim, right? So Elohim is looking for people that are willing to teach His ways, okay? And so Abraham did that with Isaac, right? And so he had Ishmael and Isaac, right? Ishmael did have a blessing, but Ishmael went in disobedience. Isaac obeyed, right? He stayed in the land of Canaan, right? And Rebekah was given to him by Abraham's servant, right? Abraham's servant is sent by Abraham to look for a wife for Isaac, right? And his servant prays for the woman that will fulfill and make his mission, right, to find a wife complete. And Rebekah fulfills every check mark on not only Abraham's servants list, but on Elohim's list, right? She serves him, she serves her camels, and she does justice and righteousness, and she mirrors not only Abraham but Elohim's way. And so Rebekah is married with Isaac, right? And so now we understand that Rebekah and Isaac are married for 20 years, okay? And they haven't had a child. But before we get into that, we're gonna do the Torah blessing. Blessed are you, Elohim, our King of the universe, who has sanctified us with his commandment and has commanded us to study the words of your Torah. Please, Adonai, our Elohim, that the words of your Torah are pleasant to our mouth and the mouth of your people, the house of Israel, and that we and our children and the children of our children, the house of Israel, know your name and become students of your Torah for its essence. Blessed are you, Elohim, King of the universe, who has chosen us from all the nations and has given us the Torah. Blessed are you, Adonai, giver of the Torah. So, like I said, this week's Torah portion starts in Genesis 19 through 28 and 9, right? The Haftarah, the prophets, are Malachi chapter 1 through 2, verse 7. And the Brit Hadashah, the New Testament portion, is Romans 9, verse 6 through 16, right? So these are the topics that are targeted in this Torah portion, right? Rebekah's barrenness and pregnancy and the birth of Jacob and Esau. Their unique personalities emerges. Esau sells Jacob his birthright. A famine forces Isaac to move to Philistia. Isaac settles in Gerar. The dispute over the well. Jehovah confirms the Abrahamic covenant with Isaac. Abimelech reaffirms the treaty with Isaac, Esau, and married outside the family. Isaac desires to confer the birthright blessing upon Esau. Rebekah schemed to ensure the blessing goes to Jacob through trickery. Jacob procedures the birthright blessing. Esau's hatred of Jacob. Rebekah tells Jacob to flee to Laban. Isaac admonishes Jacob into marrying a Canaanite, and Isaac confers the Abrahamic blessing upon Jacob. Esau marries a daughter of Ishmael, right? So those are the topics that are covered in this Torah portion. So Genesis 27, 1 through 10 says the following. Now, it came about when Isaac was old, and his eyes were too dim to see, that he called his older son Esau, and he said to him, my son. And he said to him, here I am. And Isaac said, behold, now I am old, and I do not know the day of my death. Now then, please take your gear, your quiver, and your bow, and go out to the field and hunt game for me, and prepare savory dish for me, such as I love, and bring it to me, that I may eat, so that my soul may bless you before I die. Rebekah was listening while Isaac spoke to his son Esau. So when Esau went to the field to hunt for game to bring home, Rebekah said to her son Jacob, behold, I heard your father speak to your brother Esau, saying, bring me some game and prepare a savory dish for me, that I may eat and bless you in the presence of the Lord before my death. Now therefore, my son, listen to me as I command you. Go now to the flock and bring me 2 choice young goats from there, that I may prepare them as a savory dish for your father, such as he loves. Then you shall bring it to your father, that he may eat, so that he may bless you before his death. So, here we see that we get into a conversation with Isaac and Esau, right? With Isaac tells Esau, can you break me a plate of food, because I don't know where I'm going to die, and I want to, be able to eat and bless you, right, before I die. And Rebekah is listening to this, right? And she tells Jacob, I heard this conversation, and I want you to get the best of the flock and bring it to me. We can prepare a meal for your father, and he will bless you, right? And so this story is interpreted as a deceiving, right? Jacob and Rebekah looked at in a negative way because they deceive Isaac, right? Isaac is believed to be blind, right? And so he's not able to discern who is who in the process of the blessing, right? Which is either be Jacob or Esau, right? And so everybody tends to focus on that. Rebekah and Jacob deceived their father, right? And so Rebekah, interestingly enough, is doing something that she understands is correct. But we're going to keep following this narrative, right? So the next thing we see is Genesis 25, verse 29 through 34, which says, Once when Jacob was cooking stew, Esau came from the field, and he was exhausted, right? Esau said to Jacob, let me eat some of that rest too, for I am exhausted. Therefore, his name was called Edom. Jacob said, sell me your birthright now. And Esau said, I'm about to die. Of what use is my birthright to me? Right? And to me, an understanding is sarcastic, right? But then Jacob said, swear to me now. Meaning, make it legally, right? Your words will bound this, right? The word of Esau saying that he will sell his birthright was a legal statement, right? And the meal that they will have is a covenantal meal, which we will study later. So he says, so he swore to him and sold his birthright to Jacob. For then Jacob gave Esau bread and lentil stew. And he ate and drank and rose and went his way. Thus Esau despised his birthright. Right? So here we understand that there was a blessing, right? Isaac told Esau, bring me a plate of food before I die so I can bless you, right? So the transferring of leadership, right, is the blessing, right? This blessing is one that transfers the leadership of the clan to the next generation. If the inheritance remained undivided for some time, which was common, the privileged son, usually the firstborn, was designated the administrator of the estate. The administrator has significant control of the estate. His roles included presiding at sacrificial meals celebrated by the family, supervising burials, funerary rites, and serving as kinsman redeemer. Right? Jacob and Rebekah, on his behalf, will desire this because it was also in the administrator's hands to approve the timing for the division of the inheritance. If Esau were the administrator, he could presumably delay the division indefinitely, and this deprived Jacob of the advantage of the double share of the inheritance. The blessing also served as a proclamation of the destiny of the sons. It was not accorded the same status as prophecy from Elohim, right? No, Isaac uses the firstborn, I have made him, right? But it still was an exercise of authority believed to be binding through the very speaking of the words. This is why Isaac could not take it back, even though it became clear that he had been tricked. So here is explaining, right, the whole commotion about how Rebekah and Isaac and Jacob deceiving Isaac, right, in his blindness, right. Isaac transfers the leadership rights of the firstborn to Jacob, which the firstborn is Esau, right? And so all of this authority, right, all this responsibility is given to Jacob instead of Esau. And the commotion is because not only they took all of this, but Esau was tricked and Isaac was as well. And so we're going to get to understand a little more about the birthright, right? Birthright, or primogeniture, right? The privilege of the firstborn in inheritance is referred to as primogeniture, right? Primogeniture was not universally practiced in the ancient world, but it was a sort of default position, right? Sufficient numbers of examples exist of either a younger son having the privileges or of the estate being equally divided to demonstrate that a variety of arrangements was possible. The birthright consists of material inheritance. The firstborn usually received double the share from the father because he was expected to become the paternal family, right? Having ultimate responsibility for all the members of the extended family, right? Mothers, unwed, and sisters, right? As well as for the continuing care of the deceased, right? With this great responsibility came great resources. And so the blessing in the birthright is what Jacob and Esau are in right now, right? Esau is the primogeniture, right? The birthright is for Esau, and Jacob is the second son, right? They're believed to be twins, right? Fraternal, right? Or identical, but they are supposed to be twins. And so Esau is supposed to be the one receiving these blessings, right? When Isaac leaves, right? He passes away. Esau is supposed to take this, right? And so the whole commotion of Jacob being a deceiver and Rebekah being a deceiver is because of this, right? If Jacob would have gotten the blessing, right, and the birthright, he would have taken all the responsibility, not only of his family in that moment, but of the generations to come, right? And so you can interpret it as, Jacob being a deceiver, but as we follow along the story, we will understand the context of what's going on, right? So let's keep going. So 2 nations, 2 kingdoms, right? So out of Jacob and Esau, this is what is prophesied that is going to come up, right? Isaac and Rebekah, right? Like we said, in the opening of this Torah portion, we see how Isaac and Rebekah were together for 20 years and they were not able to have their heir. So Isaac prayed for his wife and the father answered and she conceived. Rebekah looks for an answer to her pain, right? So now Rebekah is given the blessing of being a mother, right? She's a mother of twins, right? And she's having this pain. She's struggling, right? And in the Bible says that she went to look for an answer from Elohim, right? In the Hebrew, it says that she went to find an oracle, meaning that in that time, there was a specific place where there was a person that would speak on behalf of Elohim, right? And the book of YASHAV explains that it's Sem, right? Many people may believe that it's Abraham, right? And so at the end of the day, she got an answer from Elohim. And Elohim tells her, 2 nations are in your womb. 2 peoples from within you shall be divided. The one shall be stronger than the other. The older shall serve the younger. So this is the blessing that is given to Rebekah. This is the prophecy that's given to Rebekah, right? And so Rebekah understands what's going on now, right? She's given a responsibility. We're going to call this God's purpose, right? So Rebekah is responsible to listening to Elohim and paying attention because she has a function, understanding that at some point, for some reason, the older shall serve the younger, right? And so Genesis 25, verse 27 to 28 say the following. When the boys grew up, Esau was a skillful hunter, a man of the field, while Jacob was a quiet man in tents. Isaac loved Esau because he ate of his game, but Rebekah loved Jacob. Now, the descriptions of Jacob and Esau are that one was a man of the field, a hunter, and the other one was dwelling in tents. He was quiet, right? In the Hebrew mindset, right? In the Hebraic mindset, the term open field is a reference of being outside of the Torah or outside of the order or the structure and teachings of Jehovah or Yahweh. And it means that you are living the present without thinking of the future. And to dwell in tents is a reference of dwelling in Elohim's protection and guidance through Yeshua, our Messiah, right? So, Rebekah is given a blessing, right? She's giving a revelation that the older will serve the younger, right? And so she's seeing their growth. She is the mother of these 2 children. Understand that Isaac is blind, and Isaac understands that Esau is his birthright, right? His firstborn. He deserved the birthright because he was born first. But Isaac is blind and he cannot see what Esau is becoming, right? He was a hunter, a man of the field, right? Esau was out of the boundaries of Elohim. Esau was focused on doing his own thing, creating his own world, right? Hunting, right? In the field, free, right? While Jacob was understanding that he was responsible for the family. He was responsible for the next generations to come. And he was intent, right? Which means that he was learning Elohim's way like the men of Elohim will do. While Esau was on the open field without order, right? That's, without instruction, fulfilling his own will. And so Rebekah is seeing these two sons growing, and she sees that her husband is not able to discern who deserves this, right? Elohim gave her a prophecy and a message saying that the older will serve the younger. Now, when she sees how Esau and Jacob are moving morally, she understands that Jacob will fulfill Elohim's purpose. And she will fulfill her purpose, or better yet, Elohim's purpose, through Jacob. Because Jacob is willing to obey Elohim from day one. Esau is distracted because he's worried about what he wants, what he thinks, right? And so we can see the two aspects here, right? Jacob, even though he wasn't the chosen one, right? Or even though he wasn't the primogeniture, right? The main son, right? The firstborn, he was doing what the firstborn should do. While Esau, in his disobedience or ignorance, was not fulfilling his role. He was not being responsible. He was not in the tents. He was not in the land, in the group, in the circle of Elohim, understanding that, okay, you're hunting, you're trying to be successful, but you have to come back to the foundations, right, which is Elohim. And so we need to understand from this portion, right, and like I do my best to make it as simple as I can, right, with as little points here and there of information and context and culture. But understand something. There's two mindsets, right? The men that will obey Elohim and fulfill his purpose, and the men that will go their own way and in their ignorance and disobedience will dishonor Elohim. Understand something. You can live your life in the world and you will be blessed. You can have blessings, meaning that you will have a great company, you will have a great career, right? You can be a great athlete, you can be famous, everybody can know you, right? Today you can be a great YouTuber, you can be a great movie star, right? You can make a lot of money, buy a beautiful house, buy beautiful cars, right? But at the end of the day, you can build such a big empire on your name, but if you're not honoring and exalting Elohim's name, you will be replaced. When you get to those gates and you say, Elohim, look, I made a great name for myself. Right? Ask Nimrod what happened when he wanted to make a great name for himself. He built a great tower. He was successful, right? The Babylonians, ask him. They had a great empire. Where are they today? The Assyrians, right? The Hittites, all these great empires, they were dominant. They were successful. They had great stretches of success, but they perished. Until today, what we see that is valid and that is still as alive, just like those days, was Elohim's will, the Bible, right? It's still to this day, whether you believe in it or not, it still exists. Okay? So, you can build whatever you want, but Elohim is the master of destroying empires when they are not fulfilling Elohim's will. Jacob was going to fulfill Elohim's way because he was intense, trying to understand and get to know Elohim, while Esau was in the world, in the open field, right? The Torah, right, when we go into Exodus, we're going to understand that the Torah, right, at Mount Sinai, when it was given, it is understood that there was a fence, right, dividing the mountain, right, and it signified separation, the levels of holiness. And so, if you are in the circle, right, if you are in the fence of Elohim, right, the Torah becomes a white, beautiful picket fence, right? If you've been to a barn and you see these white fences, right? You can see through this fence, right? But whatever is in this, outside this fence, whether it be sin, disobedience, ignorance, cannot come into the fence, because the Torah, right, the commandments, right, the structure that Elohim has created is going to protect you from sin, from disobedience, from ignorance. But the moment that you start thinking in your own mind that you can cross over or break through this fence and fulfill your own will, and then just jump back into the fence, and then just jump the fence and come back, jump the fence and come back. You cannot do that. You cannot disobey Elohim and come back, right? You cannot break Shabbat and come back. You either depend on Elohim and you depend on his will, or you depend on yourself. Right? Jacob or Esau, who do you want to be? Do you want to dwell in tents? Or do you want to be on the field, on the open field, with no fence or protection? The ball is on your court, and you have to understand that Elohim is looking for men to manifest themselves and honor Elohim. Romans 9, verse 6 through 16 say the following. But it is not as though the word of Elohim has failed. For not all who are descendant from Israel belong to Israel, and not all are children of Abraham, because they are of his offspring. But through Isaac shall your offspring be named. This means that it is not the children of the flesh who are the children of Elohim, but the children of the promise are counted as offsprings. For this is what the promise said. About this time next year, I will return, and Sarah shall have a son. Right? So the children of the promise are what are counted as offsprings, meaning that the ones that are fulfilling Elohim's word are the children of the promise. And not only so, but also when Rebekah had conceived children by one man, our father Isaac, though they were not yet born and had done nothing, either good or bad, in order that Elohim's purpose of election might continue, not because of works, but because of him who calls. She was told, the older will serve the younger. As it is written, Jacob I loved, but Esau I hated. What shall we say then? That there is injustice in God? By no means, for he says to Moses, I will have mercy on whom I have mercy, and I will have compassion on whom I have compassion. So then, it depends not on human will or exhortation, but on God who has mercy. Right? It's not about how much you can do. It's about Elohim's mercy. Now, you can say, well, how can I please him if it's only up to him? Well, we're not keep reading. So it says, verse 17, for scripture says that Pharaoh, for this very purpose I have raised you up, that I may show my power in you, and that my name might be proclaimed in all the earth. So then he has mercy on whomever he wills, and he hardens whomever he wills. You will say to me then, why does he still find fault? For who can resist his will? But who are you, O man, to answer back to God, or Elohim? Will what is molded say to its molder, why have you made me like this? Has the potter no right over the clay to make out the same lump? One vessel from an honorable use and another for dishonorable use? What if Elohim, desiring to show his wrath, to make it known his power, has endured the much patience vessels wrath, prepared for destruction, in order to make known the riches of his glory for vessels of mercy, which he has prepared beforehand for glory, and even us, whom he has called, not from the Jews only, but also from the Gentile, has indeed is said in Hosea, those who were not my people I will call my people, and her who has not beloved I will call beloved, And in the very place where it said to them, "You're not my people," there they will be called sons of the living Elohim. And Isaiah cries out concerning Israel, "Though the number of the sons of Israel be as the sand of the sea, only a remnant of them will be saved, for the Lord will carry out his sentence upon the earth fully and without delay." And Isaiah predicted, if the Lord of hosts had not left us offsprings, we will have been like Sodom and become like Gomorrah. So, what shall we say then? That the Gentiles who did not pursue righteousness have attained it. That is a righteousness that is by faith, but that Israel who pursued the law that will lead to righteousness did not succeed in reaching the law. Why? Because they did not pursue it by faith, but as if it were based on works. They stumble over stumbling stones, as it is written, "Behold, I'm laying in Zion a stone of stumbling and a rock of offense, and whoever believes in him will not put to shame." Now, Elohim is telling us here that he is the one in control. He's saying that us that have been integrated into this story, right? Integrated into this history, which entails Israel, right? Jacob, Abraham, right? All of us need to understand and learn from the fathers. Understand that there is a pattern. There is a cycle of life and a cycle of the Torah. And we have to understand that there is always men that will obey Elohim and men that won't. And you have to understand that you, as an inserted branch, right, into the olive tree, you're called to fulfill his law by faith. Meaning that you act from your heart in obedience to what Elohim has commanded you. We're not here to question why Rebekah and Isaac deceived. Or we're not here to question why Jacob and Rebekah deceived Isaac. Because Elohim said that the younger will serve, the older will serve the younger. Esau was not fulfilling his purpose. Jacob was fulfilling Esau's purpose. So Elohim said, even though Esau has the birthright, I choose the one that is willing to do my will. And I choose Jacob. And Rebekah said, I choose him too. In our ignorance, we tend to think that we have everything under control, and we start walking outside of the boundaries of Elohim, the fence, right? When we stop dwelling in tents and we start dwelling in the world, but we don't know it. We start negotiating Shabbat for money. We start negotiating Shabbat for bills. We start negotiating the feast. We start negotiating our faith. We start rejecting our Messiah and listening to people that are not fulfilling Elohim's purpose, which is justice and righteousness and uniting the body. Anybody that's willing to divide the body of a Messiah in lies, it's not somebody that you should follow. Anybody that's outside the boundaries of Elohim, like Esau was, listen, and they cannot inherit the birthright. Because it's not only by blood or by descendancy, it's because you are willing to fulfill Elohim's purpose. You are fulfilling Elohim's purpose. If you're fulfilling Elohim's purpose, you'll be part of the birthright. If you don't, you won't be. It doesn't matter if you are a descendant or not. It'll be irrelevant. Because Elohim is not looking for descendants. He's looking for somebody that will fulfill his will. And if he can find a generation that is willing to obey his word and obey his purpose, then there is the birthright and the descendancy that he wants. It's not about who you are and your name. It's about, are you willing to exalt his name And then he will give you a name that will be honored and respected. Understand that the first will be last and the last will be first. What does that mean? That we are all equal. But only those that are obedient to Elohim and are willing to fulfill his purpose are going to be the ones that will inherit not only the birthright, but the blessings that Elohim has given his people. His people are those that obey and honor his word and his purpose. Do your part. Honor Elohim. Like we say, YASHAV, dwell in tents. Honor his word, study it, and overall, honor his son's blood that was shed for us so that we can have the privilege to study his word in his heart. Thank you for watching. Have a great week. Shavua Tov. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you.